Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Launch in Land with your MAPS coach, Casey Mock. Please note this webinar is being recorded and you'll automatically receive the webinar recording. If you have any questions for your coach, please type them into the questions box located in your webinar taskbar. Following the webinar, if you have any questions about today's coaching call or program, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. All right, Casey, that's all from me. Go ahead and take it away.
Hey, thanks, Jasmine. So we've got a pretty good audience, and we're really excited about Launch in Land. Give a little background, if you'll allow, on KW Land and why we've arrived at this program. So KW Land was an agent success story, much like most of you on this call, I'm sure, have interest in land. And in 2013, there was a group of us that had interest in land. We were selling land in Keller Williams, and we all agreed that this was the best place to do business and build wealth in real estate, but there was nothing for land. And so we came to, at that time, Mary Tennant and Mark Willis and Gary, and through a year of masterminding, we came up with the Farm and Ranch division of Keller Williams, which is now KW Land. And we've had a lot of success through them, but what we realized in the last year, Justin Champ, who's here, is our operations coordinator for KW Land, working with Justin, myself, and our leadership council, what we've realized is we have actually failed to provide a pathway for somebody to get into land sales at a high level. We've got a great value proposition for high producing land specialists, and we've got a great value proposition for team leaders to go out and recruit to, but we failed to give a pathway for, let's call it a rookie in the land business, to go from a base knowledge of land to getting into the business. We failed to provide that. We failed to provide a pathway for a rainmaker to actually know how to go hire to a land person on their expansion team. And we failed to provide more information for leadership to go recruit and be able to have a land conversation. So that's the whole basis of Launch in Land, of this new coaching program called Launch in Land, is to give you a basis, a Land 101 type of an overview of the land business, so that you can go sit down with the buyer or seller and know the right questions to ask. You can know what to watch out for in the business, in leadership, team leaders, rainmakers. You can go have a talent conversation and have an educated land conversation. So that's how we arrived at where we are today. As Jasmine said, my name is Casey Mock. I'm the executive director of land here at Keller Williams Realty International, National Recreational Land Broker of the Year in 2018, which was a huge honor. And that's done nothing more than a reflection of the value that we have here at Keller Williams. For Keller Williams to have as many brokers in the top national producers awards as we do is really something. And we've come that way and come that far in 4 or 5 years, and we want to share that knowledge with those of you who want to learn more about land here at Keller Williams Realty. And so we're proud to do that. You'll see on the slide in front of you, we are going to bring in over 8 guest special coaches, we'll call them. And what we've done is we've gone out and we've found who some of our top producers are in certain asset classes, such as timber or agricultural land or transitional development land or recreational property or transitional luxury type of land sales. And we brought those people in to do a short session on what's unique about that asset class and that property type. And that's the culture here at Keller Williams, isn't it? It's a culture of sharing, it's a culture of value, and together we all achieve more. And to have those people come into this program and share their knowledge, we're very excited about that, and we certainly appreciate their contribution to the program. We looked at and we polled a lot of agents, and what we found in Keller Williams with respect to land sales was not a lot of agents had clarity on the land business. There's 350 members of KW Land today. About 30% of those are selling almost exclusively land. The rest is a blended rate. Justin, would you say that's right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the rest is a blended business. So they're selling some luxury, they're selling some land, they're selling some commercial, they're selling some residential, and land is a percentage of their business, whether it's 5% or it's 50%. Land is a percentage of their business. but we didn't find a lot of focus in saying, hey, we have a goal this year, right? We didn't find a goal where teams or individuals were setting a goal to do a certain amount in land. And what we realized was it's because we weren't giving them a path to clarity about how to go get it and what additional resources they need. So that's the first thing we realized. The second thing was when we started going through the P&Ls of our top producing land specialists, we started seeing some variance, and we started seeing maybe where there was concern about whether the model was applicable, the MREA model. And you know what, we found the same thing in coaches. So we talked to mastery coaches, and maybe some of you are coaches or you're in mastery coaching, and you had a conversation with a coaching client or with your coach where do these models, do the MREA models apply to land? And so we started going through the budget model, Jasmine, and we saw the same thing where there's variance from the model, and consequently there's variance from the budget. And what additional resources do we need, and what human resources do we need, and what additional tools do we need, and how those affect our bottom line? And all those are things we touch on in this course. We don't go super deep, Jasmine, into the budget model. In other words, we don't spend a week or 2 weeks on the budget model. We're going to spend a couple of sessions on the budget model and talk about where we see comparison. We spend a lot of time in this session talking about the bundle of sticks. And so I'm going to use some pins here as an illustration. I'm going to step out of frame for a second. But when you think about, let's see here, kind of going off scripted here. So NAR, in NAR's charter, NAR says under all is the land. And so if you're in the real estate business, folks, you're in the land business of some component. If you're selling high rises, there's land under it at one time. If you're selling the standard residential 1 to 4 family residential home in a D.R. Horton subdivision, well, not long ago, that was a piece of productive land. And so being able to understand what sits under it, why it was engineered this way, how the utilities work, is going to help you be a better agent. So there's a lot of awareness around land that helps you be a better realtor. We talk about land. The other thing you need to know that NAR says is in Proposition 11 or Article 11 of your agent agreement with the National Association of Realtors. And what does it say? You made a commitment when you signed that to be competent in the areas that you work. So if you read Article 11, it says that a realtor shall not undertake brokerage or agent responsibilities in an area outside of their expertise or competency. But so many times we see that happen. We have beta tested teams that call expired listings, and we on land. We've beta tested teams that call expired listings on land. The number one firm that they hear complaints about is Keller Williams. So more of your listings are expiring due to the lack of tools and knowledge about how to actually sell that land asset. And so we wanted to address that. That's not good for your residential business either. It's not good for your market center's reputation either. And so we wanted to address that. So competency is extremely important. And that is one big reason that we're doing this. Whether this turns into long-term coaching clients or KW Land members is irrelevant. The real goal here is to raise the baseline of land, of rural land, farm ranch land, commercial land, luxury land sales across the company. And so you think about the land transaction, Jasmine, and it's the classic bundle of sticks. Let's pretend like this bundle of highlighters and markers is a bundle of sticks. It represents a piece of property in its purest form. And I'm holding these up so I can get in frame of the camera. So let's pretend like this bundle is what you would purchase if you purchased a raw piece of property at some point. And so it's going to have blue for water rights, and it would have, let's say, purple for mineral rights, and it's going to have, let me back up a little bit. It's going to have blue for water rights. It's going to have black, crude oil, black for oil and gas mineral rights. It's going to have surface mineral rights with it. It's going to have some timber rights with it. It's going to have some solar rights with it. It's going to have some wind energy rights with it. Maybe it's got, of course, you have the recreational or surface value, which is what a lot of you are actually after. That's what a lot of your buyers are after, is how are they going to use the surface. And so in that bundle of sticks, right, when you purchase this piece of property and you're purchasing a percentage of this bundle of sticks, you may be purchasing, likely you're always purchasing the surface. Hopefully you're purchasing all of the surface, but you need to know that. And so likely you're purchasing the surface. When we get into these other bundles though, your water rights, your solar, your wind energy, your oil and gas, your surface minerals, your surface water, your timber rights. We get into all these other things. Do you know what you're buying and selling? Do you know how to find out what you're buying and selling? And do you know how to value and represent what you're buying and selling? Do you know how to find out what's a part of that property and how that's going to affect your buyer seller? So we spend a lot of time talking about the bundle of sticks and how that relates to your competency to help buy and sell rural land or transitional land tracts. I think it's extremely, extremely important because this is a business that we take very seriously. It's very tempting to look at the land business as a potential to earn a big commission, because you look at 2 or 3 or 4% on a multi-million-dollar transaction. Well, that's a year making money. If you have a $5 million piece of property and you sell that $5 million piece of property and you make 3%, it's $150,000 on one deal. It beats the heck out of selling homes if you're talking about commission rate on one deal. But it may take you 3 years to sell it, and you may eat up a lot of legal fees and marketing fees to get this sold and a ton of time. And so you need to know how to look at every opportunity and see if it fits inside of your wheelhouse and see if it fits inside of your goals and if it's actually a distraction. We've had a lot of conversations, Jasmine, with rainmakers and mega teams across the country who have decided for them, they either need to have a focused person on the team that just does land, or they need to refer it out to a partner because it's a distraction for their agents who are focused on selling a high number of units. And we have the other situation where they see it actually is a strategic part of their business, but you need clarity on that. Success in the land business, Jasmine, is very, very intentional because it is a very dynamic business. It's a challenging business, but if you're successful in it, it's an extremely, extremely rewarding business. And so our goal through Launch and Land, partnering with MAPS and KW Land here, is to provide that path, of how you can go from a very minimal knowledge of the land business to start to accomplish competency and start to accomplish some of those benchmarks where you're more confident in that listing buyer presentation, you know which resources you need, and you can navigate those waters of competency successfully to be better realtors and better land agents. And so we're excited about this course. As far as where to enroll, Jasmine's put that on the screen here. We've got over 40 lessons. And so, Jasmine, you probably want me to present this, and feel free to butt in if I need to present it differently, but this is different than the group coaching that a lot of you may be used to. Whereas a lot of you are used to a group coaching format similar to this call, where it's a scheduled call, you get on the call, you listen to somebody on GoToMeeting, and if you can get your question and you can get it in, if not, tough luck. If you had a listing appointment over that call and you didn't reschedule your listing appointment, then what do? You go chase the money, you go to the listing appointment, and you miss your call that you invested in. So what MAPS has done for you here, MAPS has provided a very interactive format for this course, and we're testing this with MAPS. I think it's very, very exciting, Justin, what we're doing here. Think of Netflix. Think of, I can go on to Netflix, I can buy a series, I can binge watch the series, or I can watch the series every week. It's up to me. The same with this course, Launch and Land. There's 7 sessions broken into 40 separate video lessons with material to download. And we spend a lot of time in the studio recording what we feel like is high value content for you. You can go binge watch all 40 sessions or lessons, or you can break them into 7 weeks or break them into 40 days. That's up to you. And then you can come back and rewatch that because you purchased that series, you purchased the class. It's on-demand training at your pace, watch at your speed, and you own the material and the content. And we think that's going to encourage you and allow you and equip you to go better implement these lessons and implement this value into your business, and then know how to come back and study deeper. We'll be following this with mastery coaching, with 10-on-1 wealth building coaching, and then with more courses specifically on a certain session where we can go deeper into that as we get feedback from you and know where those sessions and those deeper dives need to be. We can provide that, and so we're excited about the format, Jasmine. And hey, thanks for that. I'm very available to Q&A here. One thing that we maybe didn't discuss early, Justin, is who's the target audience for this. So I would say the target audience is agents that are interested in selling land at a higher level, somebody that just doesn't know whether it's good for them or not. It's a pretty inexpensive investment to go find out. If you're a rainmaker and you are looking to put a land specialist on your team, this would be a great course to take. Have your operations director take it, have your marketing director take it. And then for coaches, if you want to have a career in coaching land agents, gosh, no better way to learn how to speak the language a little bit of land so that you can relate to what your coaching clients in a mastery level are going through. And this is all coming from the field. This is all you telling us if you fit in those buckets. We've spent a year talking about this, a year and a half actually talking about this coaching program, putting the content together based on feedback we get at family reunion, at mega camp, and into KW Land here. So this course is for you. This is not something that we dreamed up to sell. It's not something that we dreamed up to try to create another revenue stream. This is all content and all models that you have asked for and asked us to provide. So we've packaged that in a very user-friendly manner here. Jasmine, did I do it the way you wanted it done?
Yep, that's good. So we'll be taking Q&As from anyone. If they have questions, you can type those into the questions box and Casey will answer them for you. So we do have one question from Nicole. What is the average days on market for most land close to 200K? Also, how often do you make price changes?
Okay, I'm trying to find, I don't know if oh, here it is right here. I see the question now. So Nicole, average days on market for land close to 200,000. Gosh, that would vary as much as me asking you what's the average time on market on a home around 200,000 across the country. It all depends on who the buyer is for the land. If it's a $200,000 lot in a luxury neighborhood, it's going to depend on how strong that neighborhood is, how strong the economy is. If it's a $200,000 farm in Illinois that produces a 10 cap rate, it's not going to last very long because there's a lot of buyers for that at a 10 cap. If it's a $200,000 live water or $200,000 recreational property, it depends on the unique attributes of it. So I really can't answer that at all. I've personally sold $200,000 land tracts that didn't last a week on the market, and some that have taken over 2 years to sell. And so it literally depends. As far as how often do we make price changes, I'd encourage you to look at that very similar to how you look at price changes in any other business, whether you're selling commercial property, residential property, or cars or Nike tennis shoes. You need to be an expert in the market first. So if your piece of land, this tract is priced at $200,000, first, how'd you come up with the $200,000? Was that the seller's price? They told you, would you like to sell it? I want $200,000 for it, and you agreed to list it? Or did you go comp it at $200,000? If you comped it at $200,000, or you verified your seller's $200,000, then you should also be able to go look at time on market for similar properties. And you should know if they're selling in 3 months, 6 months, 3 weeks, 2 years, over the last 2 years, and then look at what that time on market's doing now. So that's why I said earlier that that being in the land business is very intentional. It's not something that we can do as a in my opinion, this is Casey talking. and I coach a lot of agents. I've been in the business a long time. I don't believe the land business is something that you can do willy-nilly, fall into opportunities and capitalize on those efficiently. I don't believe it's a good second income source. I think it's something, if you want to do it and take good care of your clients. Remember, most of our clients, this is one of their primary largest assets or wealth building tools, their land that they own. They're not investing in stock market. They're not investing in other things. Most of our clients invest in land. They see value in land, and they're trusting you to handle one of their most valuable assets. So if you take that super seriously, it's something that success in this business is very intentional. Success for your clients is very intentional. Success for you in the agent role is very intentional. And so you think about a price correction or price reduction or price change. Price change should go up or down. I have personally increased a list price on a piece of property by 15% and sold it. Matter of fact, Bobby Kraft in San Antonio, Bobby Kraft took a piece of property this last year that was listed at $750,000. He had it listed for a year. At the end of their listing agreement, they looked at the market data, they made a couple of changes, and they increased the price to $850,000. It sold in a month. It had been on the market for a year at $750,000. They made a minor tweak, increased the price by $100,000. It sold in a month. I've also seen situations where you have to take that same $750,000 and reduce it down to $500,000 to sell it. Last week, our team reduced a piece of property 3 times in a month. Did a price reduction, waited for calls, did a price reduction, waited for calls, did a price reduction, and started getting calls, and we got multiple bids on a piece of property. So very similar to any other size or type of real estate, but we're able to back that decision, that price decision up with data and have a reason for doing it. And the seller was responsive to that, and that seller is actually going to sell higher than the original list price because we got a competing bid situation, and we're able to navigate those competing bids and compare them accurately. So just be a market expert and let the data tell you when the right time is. I wouldn't let it get stale before I had a price correction, but just like anything else, if you're communicating with your client well, and you're communicating with your client confidently, and you're communicating good, solid market data to your client, you should have no problem telling your client, hey, the place isn't selling, we're not getting calls, it's because the market's not supporting our price, and here's how I'm showing you that. This is not me as a lazy realtor telling you that. This is me showing you market data, and if you are able to get the market data and produce that, then that pricing discussion should not be an uncomfortable discussion. It becomes uncomfortable when we go into a listing presentation and say, hey, I'm the person to sell your land and I've got the tools to market it, and all of a sudden we find out that we lied to ourselves and lied to our client. Unintentionally, right? I'm not criminalizing anybody, but that's when it becomes uncomfortable, right? Where we have an opportunity to list a place, we say, yes, I can sell it, here's what my marketing does, and all of a sudden we can't sell it. Now we're 6, 8, 9 months in, they're saying, well, why didn't you sell it? And we don't really know. And so you have to just follow the data.
Great. So Sonia would like to know, is there a certification for land sales specialist?
Yes, ma'am, there is. Sonia, great question. The way to get information on that is land@kw.com. That'll go straight to Justin Champ here, and Justin gets you information on that. The certification is much like KW Commercial or KW Luxury. It's production based, it's qualification based, it's training and education based. So moving forward, one of the prerequisites to membership is that all of our members have to go through this launch and land program so that we know everybody has that competency and they've been trained. And then at least 2 land deals a year in the previous year and commitment to that every year, which accounts for at least 15% of your GCI. So that's your production qualifications and your commitment to training. And then our membership is $800 a year for KW Land. The return on investment of that is extremely strong. And Justin can run you through the tools and resources that you get with that investment. If you're already a part of KW Luxury or Commercial, it's 25% off of your membership of land. We don't have a certification outside of the membership.
All right, so we do have another question from Lisa. In listing land for a property owner, are we confined to a 1-year agreement?
No, Lisa, great question. So the listing agreement, one, I don't know what state you're in, so I don't want to pretend to be a real estate attorney for your state, but the answer is no. The general answer will be no. You're not confined to a 1-year agreement. I'm going to go back to the first question, and you need to know the market data and the market information of what the average time on market is. I've personally taken listings that I've had to spend $5,000 and $10,000 on the market and prepare for market with a 6-month listing agreement, which is a lot of money to spend on a 6-month listing agreement, but I thought I could sell them inside 6 months because I had an idea of who the buyer was and I knew what the market was performing. And I've also taken listings on a 24-month, a 2-year listing agreement that I was real hesitant to spend any money on because I knew even at 2 years at this price, they may not sell. So you're not confined to any time period. You need to really be able to educate your client on why you need more time. I'll give you a good example of that. We sold a farm last year right up against one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It had been a row crop farm, grain, sorghum, milo, and corn with some hay and cattle on it. It was a $7.5 million transaction. What we told that seller was we need a year to test the market and plan on a year of feasibility once we get a contract. We got a contract in that place in about 4 months, and we spent the next 18 months in feasibility. And so because we had set that expectation up front, our client, as soon as we listed, our client didn't run out and start trying to find replacement properties because they knew we're probably not moving for 18 months to 2 years before we're actually moving off this piece of property. So there again, it's extremely important to be a market expert and know what the highest and best use of the property is so that you can determine who the buyer is and what type of feasibility, financing, etc. that buyer might need so you can set that timeline expectation to your client. Twice in the last month, I have seen very good properties and otherwise very good real estate deals in land business fall apart because the agent on one side of the transaction did not know how to educate their clients on timing. And so their client is selling a piece of property, they're going to buy another piece of property. As soon as they get a contract, they run out and put another piece of property under contract with a 60-day close. And the buyer of the contingency property, the buyer of the first property, has the ability to extend, and they do extend out 60, 90, 120 days. And all of a sudden, you've got an extension problem, you've got a contract in jeopardy, you've got a buyer's inability to perform because the agent didn't have clarity on who the buyer was and how much time it was going to take that first buyer to take down that first property, which is a trigger event for the replacement. And so that's a long answer that had a lot of components to it, but you got to be a market expert and know how to evaluate the property, the highest and best use, and who the likely buyer is. We'll touch on that in this class.
Awesome. So Nicole had a follow-up question. Can you tell me how much a gated paved road community would affect the price versus a regular private unpaved type road, also gated?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's going to affect the price positively. I don't know the specific property, Nicole, but it's going to affect it positively, I would say, because the paved road and gated road provides some perceived privacy and exclusivity. Could also provide more costs associated to, Nicole. So I know we've got a lot for sale in Burnett County, Texas, in a gated exclusive ranch subdivision that's got exotic wildlife running all over it. We can't give it away at the time because the market is saturated with them. There's 15 other communities selling the same lots. They're 5-acre lots, they're ag exempt. There's 15 other communities selling the same lots with similar restrictions. The market's saturated with them. If I took that same 5 acres and put it down a caliche road, a gravel road, unrestricted in the middle of the country, it would sell in a week. And so again, I wish I could answer the question, Nicole. I'm not trying to dodge it, but you just have to know what the market will bear and what the situation of the market is and how saturated, what the demand is for that specific type of property. That's also where when you do your market analysis, and this is a really important component. When you do your market analysis and you run your comps and you do your broker opinion value or your CMA, in a subdivision, I can go in a subdivision and generally within an acceptable margin of error, assign a square foot price to every house in that subdivision. You all can do that. I cannot go take a sample set of 20-acre properties and assign a per acre basis because no two tracts are created equally. Even if they're neighboring tracts with the same restrictions or unrestricted and the same productivity value, one's going to have different topography, one's going to have different terrain, one's going to have different habitat, one's going to have better views. One of them's going to cost $10,000 to put in a septic tank, and the other one's got rock and it's going to cost $20,000. One of them you're going to hit water at 200 feet, and one of them it's going to take 400 feet to hit water, so your water well is going to vary by $10,000. So no two pieces of land are created equally. So there again, I'm going to come back to the same answer. You have to be a market expert and understand what specific properties going to take to use, what it's going to produce and what it's going to take to use.
Okay, great. So Lisa also had a follow-up question. In more high density markets, do you feel KW land is still a good choice?
Oh yeah, why wouldn't they be? KW's got so much market share in residential, it creates tremendous opportunities in land. Lisa, when we go to, and I love the question, when we go to national land conferences, when we go to the Realtors Land Institute, which is NAR, it's NAR's land conference, every big firm in the country is there. Keller Williams is the most exciting brand at that conference. We've got the highest contingency. 5 years ago, they didn't know who we were. And so your question was, are we still a good choice? I think we're becoming the choice. We're the most disruptive, fastest growing, fastest market share taking company in the land business. And much of what we're doing, technology is adding to that. But the biggest thing is no other land company offers a business model like what we have at our disposal here. Keller Williams is a tremendous platform for land to be competitive in land, from small lots up to 10,000 acre ranches in the West. The platform you have here with Keller Williams is tremendous. Absolutely.
All right. So we have a question from Danielle. She just said, thank you, Casey. How is this paid program different or better than holding a land consultation certificate through RLI?
Okay, so she's speaking of the Realtors Land Institute's accredited land consultant designation. So if Danielle has, I don't know if Danielle has the ALC certification, the accredited land consultant. The ALC takes, to get that designation that she's speaking of, is about I'm working on mine now, Danielle, so I think it's very valuable to have. It's a very elite certification. It's a lot like getting your master's degree in that to get the Realtors Land Institute's RLI ALC designation, it's a lot like getting a master's degree. It's going to take most people 3 to 4 years. It's going to be, it's a little cheaper than a master's degree. It's going to be a $10 to $12 to $15,000 investment by the time you travel, you go to events, you sign up for courses. It's going to be a tremendous cash investment, which I'm supportive of. I'm working on mine now. You've got to write and submit a thesis packet at the end and go through a panel. So that is high level. It's a much larger investment than what this is. We encourage our land specialists inside KW Land to pursue their accredited land consultant designation. Last year at the Realtors Land Institute National Land Conference, there were, I think, 10 new ALCs given out, and Keller Williams had 3 or 4 of those.
4 or 5, yeah, we had a bunch.
Yeah, Bill Davis, Drew, no, Drew's already had his. Tim Hadley, Clay McCullough in Abilene. I think it was just those three that got their new ALCs, and we probably got 25 or Credit to Land Consultant ALCs inside KW Land. So last year we had more new ALCs with Keller Williams than any other company did at the Realtors Land Institute's National Land Conference. So that's a much higher level than what this course is, for sure. Yeah, this course is real similar. Danielle, if you're familiar with Realtors Land Institute's coursework, this is real similar to their Land 101 course. We actually took their Land 101 course as we were creating this and asked ourselves, how can we make it more interactive and improve on the material?
Awesome. So Sonia asks, is there a typical number of square miles an agent needs to cover to make a living?
That's a great question, Sonia. Very thought out question. So think of your land business very much like your residential business or somebody else's residential business. If you're at Mega Camp, you heard a resounding theme again, because it's a pretty simple business. You heard a resounding theme of establish a farm area, right? And have market share. So in other words, you want to be number one market share, number one mind share in a certain area. And that way you can, the ink blot method of expansion, right? You can expand like an ink blot would spread across piece of paper, expand from that market share. And so, I think the county, Sonia, is a good place to start. There are some firms, Whitetail Properties is the firm, they're not affiliated with Keller Williams, big land firm in the Midwest. Whitetail Properties limits their agents to a 2 to 3 county area, and so they put a boundary on their agents because they fully believe that an agent should farm, literally farm an area and have a lot of market share. And if you're tempted to drive all over the state, you're driving past opportunity, you're not focused. I in a lot of ways subscribe to that. I think there's a lot of truth to it. But I know an agent here in Texas that's got a team, but he'll do $200+ million in one county. And so, and his average deal is probably $750,000. And so he'll do $200+ million in one county. And, is he leaving that county? Probably not anytime soon, because he's making a big living there. But everywhere you go, you see his sign and his listings. And if you're taking a buyer to that county, you're probably buying one of his listings. And so start with the county. Start with the county. You could also start with a watershed. So if you've got expertise in selling live water properties, instead of a county, you might say, I'm going to take this river or this creek or this lake, and I want to get a lot of market share on this river, creek, or lake. If you're expert in timber, you may say, I want to get a lot of market share in this timber. If you're an expert in oil and gas, you may say, I want to get a lot of market share over this oil and gas shale play. If you're an expert in cattle ranches, it may not be a specific county. You may go to a livestock raisers organization. Your goal may be to farm that organization for business, wherever that business may be, as long as you're competent in where that business ends up being. So that's a great question. I think you do need to be focused on your farm area. A county is probably a good place to start.
Awesome. So Lisa would like to know, how does KW Land align with NAR's Land Institute Land Specialist?
Lisa, so good question. NAR's Realtors Land Institute, RLI, is a strategic partner with KW Land. We were actually their very first strategic brokerage partner. We pioneered a program with RLI 3 years ago where our members get waived the membership fees with RLI. They get discounted coursework with RLI, and they get discounts to RLI's National Land Conference. We spend a lot of money. KW Land writes them a very big check every year to have that, but we think it is that important that our members are a part of that organization if they're serious about the land business, that they're working toward their ALC. And so we've made a big investment in RLI. It's a great partner. I serve on 2 committees for RLI. I'm on RLI's Future Leaders Committee. I have been on one of their curriculum committees. I was on RLI's Branding and Marketing Committee 2 years ago when they did a brand change. 2017, I was RLI's rising star and top 20 producer last year as a top 20 producer and was recognized as RLI's National Recreational Land Broker of the Year. So we are very integrated with RLI. They're a very good partner.
Awesome. So we're going to take one last question, and it's from Sonia. Are there trends in land are the trends in land changing over the past 10 to 20 years?
Oh my gosh. Is it, Sonia, are you asking about land use trends or trends in the market?
Yes, land use trends.
Land use trends. Okay, great question. So think about where we've come in land over the last 20, 30 years. Land was 20 years ago, land was out of sight, out of mind for most people. We've been for the last 30 years a society that's migrating inward toward metro and urban areas. Okay, so with that, as people get more urbanized, they want to get out of the city to go recreate, so the land becomes an attractive place for them to go recreate. The other thing the land has done in the last 20 years is, as prices have escalated, I mean, prices of land in the last 20 years have gotten unbelievable. In many markets, they've doubled in the last 10 years because land is one of those assets that never goes to zero. And it's always a demand because it's a supply and demand issue. We can build more houses. We can manufacture more products. We cannot manufacture more land. It doesn't happen. And so you've heard the old saying, don't wait to buy land and wait, or buy land and not make any more of it. You know, you've heard those corny old sayings, but they're very, very true. And for that reason, land over the last 10 years in a lot of markets has literally doubled in price in 10 years because of the rarity of the asset and the demand for that asset long term. Some trends that you see in land use, Sonia, water conservation is really strong. Timber is one of the best places you can put money as a predictable cash flow asset because we have to have timber to build homes. And so timber tracks, you see a lot of institutional buyers investing in timber because it is predictable cash flow. And you've got a piece of land. You can't take that piece of land down to the grocery store and buy groceries with it, but it is a tangible asset that never goes to zero. And the more volatility you see in the stock market, the more security and certainty you're going to see in the land market because land never goes to zero. You also look at some of our highest producing acres for growing food are turning into rooftops, and some of our most valuable habitat for wildlife is turning into rooftops. So the value of that open space goes up. It's worth more because it's in a more limited supply, and it's worth more because more people want it for a different use. And so trends in land have followed trends in growth, and that the supply is short and the demand is really high. Yeah, I mean, for all types of natural resources and just for recreation use, trends in land are high. I'll give you an example, Sonia, and I think this is our last question, so I'll wrap up with this. I was showing a big ranch to a buyer about a month ago. We're under contract with this buyer now, but we're $7+ million, and the buyer brings his son with him, and we're standing on the banks of a river, big income producing cattle ranch behind us. It has a mineral estate and a water estate to it. We're standing here, and the buyer's educating and coaching his college age son who's studying business and finance in college. And he says, son, we're buying this ranch. How much are we risking when we buy this ranch? And remember, they're choosing to spend their $7 million on the ranch instead of putting it into the market, into the stock market. He said, son, how much are we risking when we buy this ranch? We're selling a business, we're gonna buy the ranch. Why don't we put this in the market? How much are we risking? His son gives the obvious answer. His son says, well, Dad, we're risking $7 million. His dad said, well, no, we're not, son. He said, here's why not. He said, all we're risking is what we're paying for this ranch today compared to what we could expect to sell it for in a severely down market. So what do you think that delta is? And his son thought, he said, oh, probably a couple $1 million. His dad said, you're right. He said, we're risking about $2 million if we were to go into recession next year and all of our other businesses tanked and we had to liquidate it, we could probably sell it for $5 million in a month. And so, we're risking $2 million, but what are our tax advantages of owning the land? We're doing a tax deferred exchange, so they're going to go from one asset into this land that's their previous asset. They've got a lot of capital gain, but they're going to defer those capital gain taxes. It's the cheapest way to invest. And so they're saving their tax deferred exchange. They're also going to depreciate all their operations and write off all their operations and investments in this piece of property because it's a business. They're going to run this ranch like a business. So they've got tax advantages there. So they're actually not risking $2 million. We got down to it, and they're only risking about $500,000. When you get down to what they're actually risking, when you take into account taxes, you take into account what they have to fire sale for, they're risking about $500,000 on a $7 million investment. You tell me where you can go do that. And oh, by the way, this ranch has doubled in value in the last 10 years. So you tell me where you can go buy another asset that has an opportunity to double in value in the next 10 years, and I'm gonna spend $7 million and only risk $500,000. And so his son said, well, Dad, we need to buy the ranch. And well, of course they did, so that's a good exercise. Land never goes to zero. Right before this call, I was meeting with some oil and gas attorneys on some royalties that we could potentially purchase. And they're talking to me about what these royalties could produce and what the expected rate of return was. And we compared that asset to something else that could go to zero. Oil and gas royalties could go to zero a lot faster than land. They probably won't ever go to zero if you invest in smart ones. So the value of a piece of land, and my father-in-law owns, he's a big rancher, and something that he always has told me since I met my wife was, we're land rich and cash poor. In other words, we've got a lot of land, not a lot of cash. He said, but the land always goes up. You can't take a wheelbarrow full of land down to the grocery store and buy groceries. It's not super liquid, but it always goes up in value. It's the best place to put land, and it's simple. I can go touch it, I can go feel it. If I invest in Dell stock or Apple stock or Nike or some other kind of stock, I can't go down to the Dell store or the Apple store and say, hey, I want to see the computer that I invested in. Can't do that. I can't go down to, if I invest in these mineral royalties, I can't go to the oil patch and say, hey guys, I want to watch y'all drill that well that I gave you my money on. They don't know which one it is. You just invested in a pool. But if I invest in land, if everything else goes to pot and the market sucks and I need another place to go lay my head, I can drive down to the ranch, I can open the gate, and everything I see there is mine. And it's going to go up in value over time. I can touch it, I can feel it, I can manage it, I can go to it, and never goes to zero because I've always got an asset. And so that's the land business. We're excited about it, and we hope to have you all on the call.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us. We will send out this recording. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at fasttrack@kw.com, or any land questions, you can email land@kw.com. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jasmine.